Hello everyone and welcome back to JB Motorsports in 2025. We have started the year brilliantly with Autosport and the Rolex 24 Hours. And this year we bring back podcasts, but we also bring something new to you here at JB Motorsports as we introduce interviews. In this we'll be speaking to people inside the motorsport industry, whether that be drivers, engineers, team bosses or commentators. And we start today as we have an incredibly special guest. Joining us, it's someone who is a Eurocup champion and also someone who can call themselves a Formula 3 driver this year. It is, of course, Javier Sagrera. Javier, welcome to JB Motorsport. It is great to have you, and of course we have to first of all start off by asking you how you're doing and how's the off-season treating you?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for bringing me in. It's also really good to speak to you. And off-season, it's been going good. You know, I thought normally you have such a big break from the last race up until next one in the season, but you know, this time I've managed to keep myself busy enough, just training, traveling, and doing all sorts of stuff. So really, you know, it was a good off season, but you know, always you have all this. You're so anxious, no, and ready to start the season that you know. I'm just fed up of waiting now.
Yeah, absolutely, and you've got a big year ahead of you as well. We'll get to Formula 3 last. We'll of course start off with talking a bit about your early years as well, along with Spanish F4, a bit about GB3, then also coming in with Eurocup 3. As we mentioned, you're the champion of that series, and then we'll end brilliantly talking about the year that is coming your way. So Javier, can you quickly then talk us through, first of all, how did your passion for motorsport come? First of all, of course, everyone, whether it's drivers, whether it's commentators, doesn't matter what role it is, everyone has different stories when it comes to getting started in motorsport and where their passion came from. So can you talk us through how your passion came from motorsport?
Well, my passion came actually from, you know, my family always loved fuel in general, but especially my dad was a rally driver when he was about my age. So he always had this passion, and you know, really, since I was 3 years old, I was jumped in a kart, and my dad would put me in those rental go-karts and run around. But you know, actually, you know, I have a funny story about this. I always tell that, you know, I was actually a lot into soccer, football, but it wasn't until one day that my dad actually, I asked my dad after a training session if one day I would be able to play with Messi and Cristiano, if I was good enough. And I was about 7 or 8 years old. And my dad said to me with a straight face, he said, no. So as a 7, 8 year old, I got really sad. And then the next day I woke up and I said to my dad, like, look, I want to find another sport and just be really good at it. So, you know, my dad said, okay, when I was young, I started with rally. So why don't you start with go-karts? So then, you know, we tried a few rental go-karts, and then, you know, finally a guy from a rental kart saw us and he said, look, this kid is quite decent in a go-kart, so why don't you try going a bit more professionally? So, you know, from there, actually, you know, my passion every year is increasing always, and I never get tired. But yeah, initially it wasn't my thing.
Okay, well, that is an absolutely brilliant story to kick off with. Of course, you came into Spanish F4 in 2019, but could you quickly tell us a bit about what got you to that position, as you, of course, mentioned with karting? So what kind of opportunities did you get? What big accomplishments did you have along the way to help you get to Spanish F4 originally?
Well, you have, normally when you start, you have all this go-karting route, no? That you start when you're about, I started actually quite late to get in professionally, if you would say like that. So I started when I was about 10-ish. And yeah, all the way up, started in this regional championships. I started in the Catalan championships, which is a region in Spain. And when I start winning there, I jumped to the Spanish championships. Then I started winning in the Spanish championship, so I jumped in the European and World Championships, representing my country. And from there on, I just spent a few years in go-karts. And, you know, I think when I was about 16, I then, you know, things were going really good in terms of my accomplishments in go-karts. I was, you know, quite recognized, especially in Spain. So I thought the natural step I had to do, because, you know, my dream is to race in Formula One. So, you know, we asked, you know, what's the next step? And, you know, we got the opportunity and we got the support to start doing F4, and we went for it. So yeah, it was a long journey, about 5 to 6 years of go-karts and traveling around the world to doing this sport and in terms of go-karts. But then, you know, when I was about 16, I then made the jump to F4.
Absolutely. And when you did make the jump to F4, how was it like entering the paddock for the first time as well? Of course, when you first came in and entered that arena, how different was it? And how, of course, were you feeling when you first arrived there?
Well, I always say it's such a different world. Like I arrived, just coming into the track, you're used to these small tracks that you're racing go-karts, and suddenly you arrive and you see all these big garages and boxes and all these trailers and trucks. So just arriving there, it's just so different. And again, it's a dream, especially when you're young and you spend all that time in go-karts, but you always kind of look up to those guys ahead of you, and suddenly, you know, bit by bit, year by year, you know, you see you're jumping into it. You know, it's actually quite a proud moment and accomplishment, seeing that it looks so far away. But, you know, if you kind of take things step by step, race by race, you suddenly you see yourself up there without even realizing. So.
Yeah, and what were you able to gather from the races that you had in Spanish F4? What things did you learn from that experience, which of course went on to help you in GB3 and everything you've done since?
Well, it's where you have to go. You know, it's this ladder that you have to step up, and you know, I learned a lot, especially you know, the step from a go-kart up to an F4 car is really big. It's like a whole other story. So it's again learning all the basics that some things you can apply from a go-kart to an F4, but really in terms of driving style whatsoever, it's so different that, you know, it was a really good step for me just to get used to a car, actually. No, especially the difference is the weight transfer. It's, you know, you're used to a go-kart that probably, you know, weighs about 100 kilos, and then suddenly you're put in a car that weighs 500, and it's so different. And again, it's all this power that you have. Suddenly you arrive to 200 and something kph instead of 100. So, but it's this ladder that you have to keep going, no? And step by step, you have to be able to make effort to then progress.
Yeah, absolutely. Could you quickly explain to us as well how helpful can it be for a driver sticking in the same team for a second season, especially for junior series drivers? So how helpful is it to be remaining with the same outfit? Of course, you know the people. So how does that really help a driver when they know the people there and, of course, have another season with the exact same team?
Well, it's actually about what you said, no? And I haven't really stuck to a team for 2 years in a row, but this year I got the closest to it because with MP I did some races in 2023, and then I did some postseason testing for the next season, and then I did the whole season with them. And I you know, it helps in a way because this year especially I've learned that, you know, teamwork makes dream work, no? Yeah. And it's totally true. You need a team behind that, especially what gives you being a few years with them is really to get to know all the people personally. It's super important to be able to know your mechanics, know your engineers. Don't speak only about racing, get to know them outside, because you build this trust and relationship. And then in the moments that really count, you have this whole team behind you that backs you and supports you when things are going not so well. And then they cheer for you when things are going right. So it's really important. But now I've learned it's not so much about sticking to the same team for 2 years. If you actually have the capacity to be open enough that you arrive to the team the first year, but you make that extra effort to get to know all the people, just be charming, be open to speaking with them, and I feel you can get this feeling and this bond in a year. It doesn't have to be multiple, but if it is multiple, because the situation is really good, the team is really good, and you feel really comfortable, it's even better, you know.
Absolutely, and we're going to move on to GB3. But before we talk about your time in GB3, could you quickly explain to the viewers what GB3 actually is? We at JB Motorsports are actually covering GB3 this year as well on the channel. So could you quickly talk us through what GB3 actually is, how's the racing like, and what kind of viewers expect from the series?
Well, GB3 is an F3 championship based in England, but really it's not in England anymore, because you have this calendar that they have now. You do more European races than actually in England, but it's a really good school, I would say. It's a championship that it's really tough, good competitors. You have really good teams. You have, especially when you go to these tracks from the UK. UK, I feel it's known for such iconic tracks. And by iconic tracks, I mean that you have all these narrow tracks that leaves you, as a driver, my feeling when you go to England is you have no margin for mistake or error whatsoever, because the tracks are so narrow and so technical that if you make a mistake, you go completely to the wall, or you touch the grass and you spin. So I would say it's one of the best schools that you have. Especially also because it rains a lot. You get to drive a lot in the wet. So basically it's a championship that you go there to, grow a lot as a driver. And yeah, it's the car it's really good. This year they have a new car that it looks awesome also. So they have really good cars. It's an F3 championship, and it's a good learning school, I would say.
It absolutely is as well. What differences did you find as well when you moved from Spanish F4 to GB3? Of course, you described a little bit about the circuits and how challenging it was, but when you did more racing over here in Britain, what were the differences that you found compared to racing mostly in Spain?
Well, compared to Spain, it's what I said earlier. You have a lot more in Spain. It nearly doesn't rain, so you don't get this experience in the wet that is so valuable, and that now I can say I kind of have it. And when it rains, it's not an issue for me because I've learned it totally in the UK. So you get a lot more valuable running in the wet. You get this, you grow as a driver, because the tracks compared to Spain, it's not that they're harder, I would say. It's that because each track, if you want to go quick, has its own tricks. But you definitely don't have margin for mistake, which is something in Spain and Europe. You have all these big tracks with such far runoffs. That if you lock up or whatever, you have all this space to run off and come back, which in England you don't have. So I would say are the two things that, for me, they're the difference from Spain and even Europe. It's that you get more experience in the wet, which is crucial, and then you learn to not really make mistakes,
Yeah, indeed. And we, of course, asked you this question in the Spanish F4 section, but we're going to put it to you once again. So you would have learned a bit more as well now coming in racing in GB3. But yeah, what did you learn from the seasons that you of course had in GB3. Of course, you already had a good foundation from Spanish F4, but of course racing in another series, as you mentioned, of course, with the mistakes, you probably were able to minimize some of those. But what else were you able to learn and also add to your skill set when it comes to driving from the seasons you had in GB3?
I will repeat myself a bit, but it's again what I told you. For me, each year you grow as a racing driver. You're more mature. You gain more experience. You race head to head with other drivers, and you learn your racecraft. But for me, you know, what you learn in England, it's that you get more wet running than in Spain. That, you know, you race two times a year, and then, you know, you have a really good car that you learn to use a lot the downforce of the car and get confident with the car, because it's a really light car, I would say, the one they have in England. So it's a really good car to learn how to drive and refine your driving skills, I would say. But really what the difference that it makes from Spain is that you learn a lot more in the wet, and then you have to make less mistakes, because if not, you put it in the wall. But then, you know, even you go to Spain, you go to Europe, and for me, it's also a really good school. So there's the route that if you want to go to England, but then especially like if you go to the Euro Cup Championship, for me, it's probably in the same level. You know, we had 30 something drivers in some races, and, you know, you have this amazing car too that they've built in Euro Cup, and you have all these amazing tracks around Europe. So for me as a driver, the good thing is that you have so many routes that you can take before stepping into the FIA route. You have the GB3, but then same level championship, you have a Euro Cup, then you have this amazing championship in FRECA. So really you kind of learn about the same, just that in England you have this virtue that you can learn a lot more in the rain.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the point as well of so many different parts. Of course, we on the JBMotorsportsXtra channel, as I've already mentioned, we are covering GB3, we're also covering FRECA, we're also covering Italian F4. There's quite a bit of routes and series that drivers can participate in. So it's really, really great to see how and where all of the different drivers come from, especially when they arrive in Formula 3 and also Formula 2, to see all of these different routes they've all taken to arrive in this same series. Now, you returned back after you returned back to GB3 just for a round as well last year in 2024. So what were the differences that the series had, if any differences? And of course, what was the feeling like when you arrived back? Did you notice anything that changed, or was it all just basically the same?
Yeah, it really was about the same. It just changed the track that I raced in Hungary, in Budapest. So the track was a bit different, but, you know, really, I also drove for a different team because I did some running with them and testing with them. So I just wanted to help the team in some way for that race, to extract information or whatsoever. But the championship, car was the same, everything was the same, really.
Yeah, and the final question when it comes to GB3, of course, you were able to get a couple of podiums as well. One in one in 21 and then one in 22, I believe it was. So how was it like? How was the feeling when you came across the line to get those podiums?
Well, getting a podium is always special. It's something that, you know, as a driver, you work so hard in whatever championship you do, even when you're in go-karts. You work so hard as a racing driver. Every day you wake up, you train, you do sim work, you have to fight for sponsorships. And then when you get to racing, you've put and dedicated all this time. And I always say I could write a book of racing with all the bad things that had happened to me, and probably to every driver. So, and from 100 things that go bad, then you have one that goes well, and it's that satisfaction of all the work you've put, that you then know that it has been for something, and that this work, suddenly you see that it finally comes to a podium, and as a result, and you say, okay, this hard work actually pays off in the end. So it's always a huge satisfaction to see that, and again in GB3 or in Euro Cup, or even in go-karts, it's a special feeling that there's a lot of drivers that, this I always say, there's a lot of drivers that when they win or they finish second or third, they don't celebrate. It's kind of, get my trophy and I go back. And I always remind myself, and I even tell some of those guys, like, why are you not happy, Because you cannot take for granted these things, because you never know when this is going to end. So you never know when you're going to score your next podium or your next win. So for me, I enjoyed it as it was my last one. So this is something I always keep in my head, like, really, you have to enjoy this moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you mentioned, loads of things can go wrong, but of course, you eventually do get that amazing moment. And we're going to move to a series that you did have a really amazing moment when it came to last year. We're going to first of all start off in 2023 in Euro Cup. Now, the question here is, was it all amazing from the start? Did you really, were you happy with your performances originally when you came to Euro Cup 3, or did you think there was always ways to improve? Of course, for a driver, there is always ways to improve. But were you originally happy with how you were doing and how you started, of course, in Euro Cup 3, or do you think there was some missed opportunities?
Well, look, I'm actually, if you don't mind, I'm going to focus on 2024.
Fair enough.
Because even in this 2024, I'm going to answer your question with, even in this 2024 that, I've actually, I did came on top in the end. There's been moments in this season that I was actually not even close to satisfied with my performance. Because as a racing driver, you always have this pressure, this doubts. You always want to be on top, and, even looking as it was like a really successful season with 10 podiums, 4 wins. Actually, there were moments in that season, especially I won Spa, the first race of the year, which was a really a high for me, But then after Spa, I had about 2-3 races. I had Red Bull Ring, and Portimao. I had 2 races especially that I couldn't get my head right, and I was about scoring some podiums. In Austria, I scored a second position, even in Portimao, but I had this poor qualifyings. I had some poor races, and even during this season, I look back and I think, okay, I have a lot to learn from. And actually, with my engineers and team, especially Portimao and Austria, we went after these weekends, even though they were a bit successful in a way, thinking, that there's so much more to improve. If we really want to fight for this championship, we need to change a lot of things. Which from the outside, you may seem, okay, this guy is still leading the championship. He's the championship leader. But inside, we were actually quite afraid. Like, look, if we keep like this, we're not gonna go well. And actually, from Portimao onwards, I kind of did a click in my head, a big change in terms of approach. That if you then see, and I worked it a lot, I had some really tough conversations. I can even tell you, I've cried during this last season, crying because I was frustrated with myself, and even with my closest members of the team. But then onwards from Paul Ricard, it completely changed everything. And from there on, I didn't step down from the podium. Apart from one race that my teammate collided with me, I didn't step down from the podium. It's such a big shift that I made. that mentally my team did help me. But in a way, if going back to your question, you do have a lot of highs and lows during a season. Probably from the outside, you kind of don't see it enough. But probably the first 3 races, or Spa, I take away. Then 2 races, I was really not happy with my performance at all.
Okay, Javier. Now, you of course talked us through a few moments, of course, in that season where it was coming together, but at the same time, of course, it wasn't really coming together at different points, the highs and lows a driver goes through. But was there really a moment where you thought you could be a championship contender, or possibly the champion? Of course, champion, maybe that might be a little bit too much, of course, considering the title fight that you were in at the time. But what were the thoughts? When did you really believe that you could possibly be the champion by the end of this season?
Look, I think as a racing driver, you always have to believe that you can be the champion. Obviously, this always has to be backed by work, especially work, always. But I always had this mentality, and I always will, that every time I put my helmet on, I only think about winning. So for me, I always believed in myself that I could win this championship since day one. But it is true that you never really, you kind of live in a bubble, at least for me, that you never realize. For me, it was, each race I was scoring points, scoring wins, scoring podium, but I took the championship with an approach that I would do race by race. Just let's rock up to a weekend, see how it goes. Depending how it goes, we go on to the next one. And like this, I just felt every weekend I was scoring good points, good podiums, good wins, and there were less and less races left. So to a point, it's true that especially after Jerez, I would say, said, okay, well, I've gone race by race. I've always said this during this year and stuff, but now there's actually only one race to go, and I'm still leading. So, this race by race approach, up until a point that you realize there's actually not more races left and I'm still leading. So I think it was a good point to take it like this. And really it's until, for me, it's not over until, and this I would say is one of the best moments in my life, when I crossed the finish straight line, knowing I was a champion, having my engineer and my team boss congratulating me on the radio, getting that in-lap to soak everything in. And up until that point, you never can take for granted that you are a champion, because as you said, in motorsport, it's not only depends of you have a team, you have a car, and so many things can happen that you always have to keep yourself on your toes. But yeah, after Barcelona, that's when I realized, look, I've made it.
Nice. And yeah, I was about to actually ask you about, were you actually aware when you came across the line that you were actually champion, considering, of course, we didn't really find out on the broadcast, as everyone was still working out all of the rules and stuff as well. We didn't really find out till you parked the car up and got out of the car, and then we got to you spraying the champagne, it was, as well, and celebrating a lot. Yeah, were you actually aware, or was it your engineer that came on the radio and that's how you found out?
Look, if I'm honest with you, I spent all the race with my engineers telling me on the radio, look, you're still champion. You're, I don't know what I was, like P5 on track, like this, you can be the champion. So I was always informed on the radio. What do I need to do? If I needed to pass the guy in front or not, from the inside, it was everything much more controlled. What probably from the outside, you always bite your nails thinking, oh, what's happening? But the guy on the inside actually normally has everything a bit more controlled. So I always knew it was tight in the end. I think it was 2 points separating us. It's true it was tight, but even when I was in the race, my engineer said, look, don't overtake the guy in front, even though I had a bit more pace than him, but just, stay where you're at and stay out of trouble. So yeah, I was, there were less and less laps to finish, and then slowly I was thinking, oh my God, this is so close. It's actually going to happen. And coming off the last corner and seeing you cross the finish line, and more the relief that you spent such a whole year working for it. You've had this stress, this nerves, everything, and you just take it all off. It's the best moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And quickly, just taking one step back as well. This question, of course, is about coming into that title final. You mentioned, of course, about the race-on-race approach, and that is something that we hear quite a bit come out of loads of drivers. But when you're in that championship fight, how much can a driver, even if they say that they are going to stick to it, how much can they really stick to it? Because of course it's always in the back of the mind that you could be champion, as you also just talked us through a few moments ago. So how much can really a driver control that race by race approach, and as well and of course manage those nerves, and how were the nerves coming into the final round?
Well, the thing is, I even in life, you can't control everything that happens to you, but the things you can control, you have to do them well. So it's never under control, and never. And there's, as I've said, it's a sport that can happen so many variables, and there you can break down the car in the last lap, but there's something I always tell myself, and it's, look, I'm a true believer that there's a destiny for everyone, and for me, if something happened in your life, it was meant to be like that, and it's probably a lesson or whatsoever. So, but the thing that takes off my nerves a lot is, I know I've put everything I could into this. I've done the best I could. I've put the most work I could. I've, trained as much as I could. And the feeling of knowing, look, I've done everything and thrown everything that I could. And now, if it happens or not, I have to be satisfied with myself. Probably not with the result if I lost or I won. Luckily, it ended well on track. But what was actually more of a relief, and probably what I didn't get nervous about that weekend, was because I arrived to that weekend thinking, look, I've done everything that I could. I've, right or wrong, but I've tried my best. So if I win or I lose, I can be proud of myself. And even better, you have, at least for me, I always think, look, I lose or I win, I have a mom and a dad that loves me. I have a grandma that loves me. I have some dogs waiting at home. So if you lose or win, there's these people that they're still gonna love you. So this, I also use it a lot, thinking, look, I always have these people supporting me whatsoever, and no matter what. So for me, this takes a lot of pressure off racing, or if I'm about to win or win the title fight, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliantly talked to, brilliantly explained there as well. And to sum up this Eurocup bit, well, how long did the celebrations go on for after that championship? And then when was it back to focus mode as well? Of course, with the Formula 3 news as well that did come up. But we're not going to discuss Formula 3. We're going to get to that in a second. So we'll save that bit for a moment when you got that announcement. But yeah, how long did the celebrations go on for?
Look, I'm going to be really honest. And I wouldn't say funny, but it's kind of, I didn't expect this even myself. After the race, a lot of friends came to support me. And even a few months backwards, I was actually speaking with my dad, and I tell my dad, look, it's been such a long and consuming year that if I win and this finally, finish this, I'm going to take a big break, just to relax, enjoy the things do the things that I enjoy and just relax a bit. So it finally went off like this the Sunday in Barcelona. So I said to myself, I brought a bunch of friends, bunch of family. We had such a nice dinner in a restaurant all together. We were probably like 40 people. And then, I went out with my friends and I said, like, now I can enjoy. So I had a night out with my friends, had probably one of the best nights ever. And I said to myself, look, now I have like probably December to relax and then refocus again. And actually, I woke up, I don't know, like at 10 a.m. that morning. I woke up from bed and I was actually, I had such a void inside. Like, I said to myself, like, now what? Like, I finished the last race. All the pressure is off, everything is off. But what do I do now? I wake up and what do I do? Have breakfast and the season is finished. So I called my dad and to his house and I said, Dad, like, I feel so lost. Like, I said I was gonna relax and have this vacation and do things I like, but like, I want to go again. So actually it was the next day, 10 a.m. that I said to myself, look, I need to keep myself busy, refocus again, because I just feel I cannot be thrown out there after all this high that I had. And the next day, say to myself, like, look, now I have all this time, because I've learned about myself that, I actually enjoy the process of doing these things and enjoying day by day training, doing the racing. And when I'm off of that, I'm no one. So it didn't even last, I would say, less than 24 hours for sure, that I was back again at it, and happier than ever. And I didn't want any kind of resting or whatsoever. I just wanted to crack on again and just start training the next day.
Yeah, absolutely. And right before we move on to Formula 3, I want to ask this question, just one question on the FRECA rounds you, of course, had in 2023. And mainly, of course, as you were a part of MP Motorsport that year, and of course we had the fatal accident for Delano earlier that year as well. So when you did come in near the end of that FRECA season, how was the team like? Of course, it would have not been easy. The whole motorsport paddock and everyone involved in motorsport was shocked, but of course you were a part of it. And so how was the team doing near the end? I can't imagine they would have been really enjoying that season after that moment at all, and they would have wanted it over immediately. And of course, but at the same time, they would have also been wanting to race for Delano. So of course, you were in there, and of course, some thoughts from you as well. How was it like in those final rounds with that in the back of your head, and of course, the team's head as well?
Yeah, honestly, I don't want to speak about this a lot. I think the team is a great team. They're such strong and phenomenal people, and everyone has its own handling. But again, they're a really strong team. They did a great work, and I learned a lot from those two races. And probably on the back of those two races were helping in my progression to win the next year and with MP. So it was a great 2 races in period to adapt to the team, and then finally consolidate, do a good year this 2024. So yeah, it was really useful for me, and hopefully I and the team was really good to start building a relationship for 2024 onwards.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, of course, moving on to Formula 3. So, well, when did you find out, Denise, that you were driving for AIX? Of course, you would have found out, you would have had contracts and everything going on way before it was announced, or possibly maybe just a few weeks, who knows. So yeah, when did you find out that this Formula 3 opportunity was possible with AIX? And what were you doing at that moment as well, when you found out or got that message or got that call?
Well, there was some interest going on with the team back and forth, but I think it was Yeah, I think I did quite a solid testing for the team. We were both
Good.
really happy with the way of working and the speed we had whatsoever. So I think that really helped for the team to finally say, like, look, we're gonna sign this guy. Hopefully, it was a good first impression. I thought it was. So I think it was probably after the testing that they just said, look, like, we believe in you, we believe in the project. So we want to have a really successful year next year. So I think you would fit in the team. Again, we were both really professional, really mature in the approach of working. So I think to really progress, it was a really good environment. So I think we both said it would be really good to work with each other. And yeah, I think I got it a few weeks before the announcement, which I was really happy again. As I said at the start of the interview, I was dreaming with this category since I was 10 years old. You know, I was with my dad watching the F1 races in Barcelona, and we were seeing the F3 guys first because we used to arrive to the track really early. So we were actually, when we go and so we're from Barcelona. So when we went to see the F1 races when I was a kid, we used to go like at 8 a.m. and see all the races, and we used to see the F3 guys. So me and my dad were looking at each other and thinking, like, how far away is this? And finally, after probably 11 years now, seeing that after 11 years of every single day working for this, you have reached that point. Obviously, for me, my dad and family was such a great achievement that obviously you want more. I look, again, my goal is to be an F1 driver, but I think you always need to look back and peel back on things and realize how much you've done. And it's been 11 years, and finally to get this call or this news saying to you, like, you're an F3 driver officially, it's such a nice feeling for me, or my family and my environment.
Yeah, and what's the thought about just having in your mind that you're going to be racing on the F1 weekend? You're going to have all of these people coming in to view Formula One on the side, also getting this F2 and F3 action, and you'll be a part of this Formula 3 action. So how's the feeling that you'll also be taking part and making a weekend so good alongside all of the F1 and F2 stars as well?
It's surreal. Like, again, I can't describe it yet because I haven't been in one actually. But just to imagine yourself being, you always look them on TV and you think, wow, like you're gonna actually be in Australia with them, with all the fans, the people. I still don't know how it's gonna be, that experience, but for sure it's gonna be a massive step. Probably a bit different to what I'm used to. But again, just an honor that I know I got this opportunity. I need to maximize it. So just, yeah, really excited.
Yeah. So with the calendar this year, is there a certain round that you're looking forward to as well? Or if you can't name one, because well, you're going to be racing at a lot of amazing venues this year, so you can name a few if you'd like. But yeah, which rounds are you looking forward to for this upcoming season of Formula 3?
Well, it probably has to be Monaco. I mean,
I had that one in mind. I thought you'd say that.
Yeah, I mean, I think every driver is such an iconic. Actually, this last year, I went for a trip with my car, and I spent a few days in Monaco, and I was walking around the streets and thinking, like, how can these guys race around here, and how incredible it has to be with this amazing atmosphere that there is to be part of that weekend, So I think, and this year having the chance to be there, it's just, again, it's something that probably I can't even imagine yet, but hopefully it's going to arrive soon and go well enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we mentioned a new car for GB3, but it's not the only series getting a new car. You have Formula 3 that you'll be racing in. That's also getting a new car as well. So yeah, what's your opinions from what you've seen of the new car so far? And also, of course, do you think that will help you settle in with everyone being on a equal footing, let's just say, when it comes to a brand new car for Formula 3? Do you think that will help you settle in a slight bit compared to possibly some of the drivers in their second season?
I think it's a really good year to enter a championship like this, especially as a rookie, because as you've just mentioned, it's a year where the car is different, the tires are different, like everything is different. So as a rookie coming in, probably the level of the field, it kind of equal itself, and these experienced drivers, probably they have a bit of advantage because they're used to the speed or the weekends, the tracks, whatsoever. There's still ground to catch up to, but for sure it's not as big of an advantage as it was because, as you've said, the car is new, totally new, and the teams have to develop it. And especially my team, AIX Racing, they've done amazing with the F2 car.
Yeah.
Won feature races, won sprint races with that F2 car and a new model. So I'm just really confident that, especially with this new kind of trend and model of the car, and especially adapting to it, they're really good. So I just think it can be a really good year.
So the final question for, of course, this Formula 3 section before we move to a little quick fire to wrap things up with. What are your goals and ambitions then coming into this year? Of course, as you mentioned, you'll believe that you can be champion. But yeah, at this stage, what would be your goals and at least what you'll want to leave 2025 with?
Well, I want to keep myself humble. And as I said, I always like to back things with work. But I do believe in myself, and I think I want to win races. I want to score podiums, and you never know if you're gonna fight for a championship or not even be close enough. So I cannot say to you like, look, I'll be fighting for a championship or not, because I think you never really know. But for sure, as I've said, as a driver, every time I put my helmet, my goal is to win, and wherever or whenever I'm put in, that's my goal. I do believe a lot in this team. I know I'm a rookie, but I want to be humble enough and think first I need to adapt to the car. I need to learn everything, and it's not going to be easy at all. And probably I'm going to have good weekends. I'm going to have bad weekends. But the goal is to win races, to try and fight for the highest that I can. And I don't want to settle for an average year. I'm not here for this.
Yeah, absolutely. And now we're going to wrap things up with a quick fire. We're going to do 5 questions in total. So yes, let's immediately get into it. So, favorite track?
Zandvoort.
Hardest competitor you've raced against?
Myself.
Lovely. Best performance you've had overall?
Zandvoort 2024.
Is that also your toughest race that you've had?
It was a race that it just poured rain, and I qualified first, a second quicker than anyone, and won both races under dry. So probably a remarkable weekend.
Craziest race you've been a part of?
That's a good question. I would say Spa 2024.
Okay, I did say 5, but however, I'll add one more, and it will be the shortest. It will be the shortest question that you've ever answered, and the easiest one as well. Should viewers watch Formula 3 this year?
Yeah, of course. I think it's the most exciting category. If you want to see action and people close, it's actually so much more enjoying than watching an F1 race. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all going to be amazing. Cannot wait for it to begin. And Javier, before we end off, what are your final words for everyone who are going to be watching Formula 3 this year from yourself?
Well, I think just to enjoy great racing. Hopefully, I myself can deliver good races and for people to watch. So yeah, just tune in to your channel also. Also, yeah, just have a great year for everyone, and yeah, just watch F3 races that for sure you're gonna enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you'd like to keep an eye on how Javier does throughout this F3 season, we'll be streaming every single practice, qualifying and the races as well, with live timings and commentary as usual, so you'll be able to keep an eye on how Javier does. Well, Javier, big thank you to yourself as well, along with Jamie, for making this possible. We'll put all these socials and links in the description as well. So a huge thank you goes to you, of course, you, Javier, for taking the time, along with, of course, Jamie, who's also been sitting here in the background. But yes, thank you for giving us a lot of your time, we have to say, and we wish you the best of luck this season in Formula 3.
Yeah, well, thanks for you for having me here and let me talk about my career and personal things. So yeah, thanks for you for letting me this opportunity, and also good luck to you.
An absolute pleasure. Thank you, Javier. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Make sure you take a look at all of our socials, and we cannot wait to bring you this brand new season of Formula 3. Thank you, and goodbye.